Welcome to part 3 in this series, and we're going to begin with setting up the character. What we're going to do is, the first part, we'll get him to move around and spawn so we can take control of him, and then we'll proceed to doing his character attack combos and skills and whatever. So, to begin, let's go into the content here, third person BP, select blueprints, and you want to duplicate this character, third person character. We'll call it warrior_BP. I'm going to move this guy into my warrior folder. The reason why I duplicate him is so we have all this movement logic. Oh, minimized it. Okay. Here, I'm just going to move this up because we're going to be using these quadrants to divide the combo system, damage input, output. And I'm also going to delete the jump because I'm not going to be showing anything to do with jumping, only with spacebar will be used for dashing instead. So I'll compile that, I'll go into the viewport, select the mesh, and switch it to Paladin character. Now what we need is animation blueprints and blend space 1D, so let's make these. Here select anim instance and Paladin. Call this warrior_ABP, and now we need the blend space 1D. Call it warrior_blend space. In this blend space, I'm gonna need the idle and the run, the one not with the great sword, because I provided you guys with these great sword animations too, but that's gonna be his alternate mode. So we'll tackle the shield and sword first, then the great sword. So let's get his idle and his run animation. Now he's running on a line, but we don't need that, so we're gonna go here in root motion, click enable root motion, and select anim first frame. He's kind of not running in a straight line, but I think it has to do with the animation more than anything. So we'll leave it be like this. It'll do the trick. Now back into the warrior blueprint, we'll set up his animation blueprint. Compile, and I'm going to go here in warrior animation blueprint, and I'll make a state machine. I'm going to call this locomotion. Now we need a slot node. You'll see this later. We're going to use all the attack animation clips, and we're going to make them play on this guy through this slot node. So click the magnifying glass, add slot, call it body, and in the drop down you select body, and you connect all of these nodes together. In locomotion you need a new state, and you're going to call it run, and we're going to plug in his blend space in there. We'll promote this to a variable called speed, and now in the event graph type is valid. Connect these two wires together and these two here. Now what you need is get velocity, and you also need to get vector length. Vector length. You take the speed set and connect the two green dots together and connect that to is valid. You compile and move the speed, and it starts to run. Oh, there seems to be an error in locomotion. Oh, I forgot to connect these together. There we go. So we got him moving, now we need to control him. We also need to spawn him, so we're going to go to widget and stat warrior. Here the go button, we're going to view its functionality, and we don't need this print string no more. What you need is spawn actor from class. You need a player controller, set show mouse cursor because we're going to hide the mouse. Also we need possess. Here you can select warrior. So you got your warrior blueprint that's going to spawn, and you'll possess it, and you'll also hide the mouse. Another thing is type remove, and you'll see remove from parent. This is to hide the widget. that allows you to select the warrior and show his stats. Connect the buttons function here, and spawn transform. Go make transform. Now we need to find the location and rotation for him. So when he spawns, he'll be facing a certain area and he'll be spawned at a specific location. To do that, we're gonna go back to the map, and here in this level, there's the target point. Now, every time I press play, the character would spawn facing the wall. So for this, I'll type in 180 right there, but that's gonna be in the stat warrior widget. So I need to get these coordinates and put them in the XYZ. So I got 200 and 350. So I'll put those in also. 350, and here 180. You go with based on what you need. So I can compile that and see the result. So he spawned, I took control of him, and I'm running around. Yeah, he runs kind of strange. So what he's missing now are his weapons, his sword and his shield. And what we're going to do next is we're going to set up his two weapons, and then we're going to make his attack combos. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be adding props to the warrior character. And we're going to put a sword, a shield, and a great sword. So first thing we need to do is we go into his animation blueprint. We need to access the skeleton here. Put animation to none so he stops moving. And you're going to notice the objects are going to be out of scale when I'm going to put them on him. But we're going to fix that in his blueprint. So we need to take his right hand and add socket. And I'll call this sword. Right click it again, add preview asset, and type in sword. So you see it's completely out of scale. But all I need right now is to position this at the correct place, and we'll scale it up afterwards. Okay, that's kind of looking good, I guess. I'll leave it for now. Then I'm going to go to his left hand, add a socket, and call it shield. There's no need to actually put the object in right now because it's way too tiny. I tested it out already. So we're going to leave it out for now. Now the third socket we're going to need is on his back. We're going to place the greatsword here, because in the animation he reaches out on his back to get the sword. So you go add socket on spine 2, and we'll call it greatsword. Just move it back a bit. And we're gonna need another one on the side of his hip over here. So on spine, add socket. Actually, maybe no, his hip's on the ground, so yeah, to spine, I guess. Add socket, and we'll call it sheath, even though we don't have a sheath mesh. This is just so that when he switches mode, the sword has a place to go. So we'll modify the sword after in terms of rotation and position. Now that we have that, we'll go into the warrior BP. Go in his viewport, and you click on him, and here for the animation blueprint, set it to none and compile it. We don't want him moving as we set these things up. Now in add component, type static mesh, we'll call this one sword, and here type in sword, select it, and what you need to do is drag it right here under mesh. Then you can duplicate this and call it shield, duplicate that, call it greatsword, and duplicate that one more time, call it sheath. So what we need is sword here, the socket, set it to sword, and zero out all this rotation translation. Now that we have this, we could scale this up to, let's say, about 2.5. So now its scale is better. The reason why it's not part of the mesh to begin with is this way you can swap weapons. Like in game, you can swap them around. So if I wanted to replace this with a mace, I could. But if it was part of the mesh, then I don't think I would be able to do that because you would have to swap mesh, because your mace and your sword look different. But if it was texture, it would be okay. Now for the shield, here we're gonna get the shield and socket. I'll put it to shield and zero out location and rotation. Here I'm gonna put it 2 times bigger, no, 4 times, even more, 8 times. Okay, I'll put it to 7. I'm gonna position this correctly. Okay, well, it's kind of floating, but it's okay. And it's inverted. There we go. Ideally, what's gonna happen is, hang on, let me just see this. Okay, so what's gonna happen is when you're gonna switch modes, he's gonna put the sword on the side of his hip, and he's gonna draw the great sword from his back. So for the great sword, type in great sword. This is gonna be ginormous, and then parent socket, great sword. Zero out location and rotation again. So it's pretty huge. We're gonna need to scale this down a bit. So I'll put it to 0.75. Yeah, it looks good. Now for the sheath, we're gonna use the sword mesh again. And if I remember well, we put 2.5 for the scale. And the socket, I'll go sheath. The reason why it's there is when you sheath the sword, we're gonna make this one visible. Otherwise, throughout the time he's holding it, it's gonna be invisible. Okay. Now, I'm not gonna position them really correctly right now because I'm recording and I don't want you guys to just wait and do nothing. So what I'll do is I'll show you here. If you click on the skeletal mesh, and then instead of animation blueprint, select the asset, and then in the asset, click the down arrow. That's strange. Animation asset. Oops. Okay. So animation asset, animations to play, none. Oh, that's really strange. I've never had this problem. Oh, so you hold and click. Okay. Really weird. What we need to do is draw sword or sheath sword. Let me find the animation here. Oh, there's draw sword too. If I compile this, you should keep doing it. So you see the location at which he's drawing from. Ideally, you would want the hilt to be there. Same thing goes for his great sword. So if I go back to the animation here and I select draw great sword. Oh, right on the spot. Let me compile that and see. Yeah, his hand pretty much lands on it. It just needs to be a bit higher. And we can put this to none again by using animation blueprint. So this stuff is pretty much set. What we need to do is take the sheathed sword right here and put it to hidden in game. I'm gonna test him out. Okay, so it's hidden. He's not moving because the animation blueprint isn't there, but I'll plug that in back into Warrior BP and select Warrior animation blueprint. Let's see him run around. There's a little camera bug, and I'll show a small fix for that too. So now we have the character's props set up. So he's holding his sword, his shield, and he's got his great sword, and he has an invisible sword on the side. What's gonna happen is when he pulls out his great sword, the great sword mesh will disappear, and we're gonna swap that basic sword for a great sword, and we're gonna put the shield on his back. It's gonna happen pretty quickly. There's a small part that I missed out. and he needs one more weapon. He needs a great sword in his right hand. So once he reaches out to get this one, we're going to turn this one invisible, and the one in his hand we're going to turn that visible. So to get that working, what we're going to do is take greatsword and duplicate that and call it greatsword underscore on. Then for the socket, you choose sword and zero everything out except for the rotation of the set. Here you put it to 180. Now it's in his hand, and I'm going to go down in rendering and set it to hidden in game. Another thing, I'm going to click on this guy and give him back his animation blueprint. So I'm going to stop the video here so it doesn't exceed too much in time. And in the next video, we're going to make him switch these two weapons, the short sword and the great sword. So see you in the next video.